And here's the key: muscle is metabolically expensive. So it's like premium fuel. So every pound of muscle that you have increases how many calories you burn at rest. Hello and welcome to the Weaponized Body Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Hewitt, and today we're going to talk about one of the most misunderstood topics in health and fitness, I believe, and that is the topic of metabolism and hormones when it comes to weight loss and building muscle. So everyone's heard this, that weight loss is just calories in, calories out, right? And what I found is that I've swung kind of both ways. This is actually technically true. You actually have to pay attention to this. It's very, very critical when it comes to energy balance. However, the thing that makes this very difficult to understand is that it's not very simple. It's not that simple that it's just like an equation for everybody. So all shapes, sizes, ages, body types, genders, these all create variables. And one of the variables that makes the most impact is actually your hormones. So, and you've seen this before. You've seen people that can basically just eat anything they want and they don't seem to gain any weight. You see them eat a bunch of trash and they're just like these thin people. And you also see other people that it seems like they look at food and they just put 10 pounds on their frame. Why is that? Well, hormones play a massive role in this. They control both sides of the equation when it comes to how your body processes the calories in, and also the other side of the equation in how your body burns calories. So the calories outside of the equation. So in other words, like it does help control things like your appetite, your cravings, your hunger levels. It affects how much you burn, your ability to build muscle versus store fat, your metabolism, your recovery, and so on and so forth. So in this episode, what I'm going to attempt to do here is to break this down as simply as I possibly can, in how hormones influence the calories inside of the equation, the hormones involved with the calories outside of the equation, and then tackle one of the biggest myths out there when it comes to your metabolism, and that we think that it like just crashes at a certain age. Let's say it's like 40 years old, for example. But the spoiler alert is it doesn't. Actually, research has found that your metabolism stays relatively consistent from the ages of 20 to age 60. So what we've once thought that your body is just designed to, shit the bed when you turn 40 years old is untrue. But there are other things at play that you need to be aware of, and how to ensure that if your goal is to look, feel, and perform as best as you can for as many years as you can, some things you really want to focus on. And I'm going to start sounding like a broken record on most of these podcasts because I always seem to come back to the same principles. But I do these podcasts in different topics and formats because sometimes it just takes that hammer that smacks you over the head in a certain way, in a certain conversation, in a certain context, that finally penetrates the thickest 2 inches on the planet, which is the human skull. I know for me, this is very true. Like sometimes I just need to hear it from a certain person in a certain way, in a certain context, in a certain environment. And it's like, oh man, like this is now something that I realize is true. And it's like, my wife will be like, yeah, I told you that 10 years ago. I've been saying that all along. But anyway, I'm hoping that the way of me delivering this conversation will help you understand the importance of hormones, especially when it comes to this calories in, calories out, energy balance game, weight loss, etc. So let's do it. Let's jump right in. We're going to start out with the calories in part of the equation. The first hormone I want to talk about is a hormone called leptin. I think a lot of people have heard of this hormone leptin by now. It's the satiety signal. In other words, it's a signal from your brain. It's actually a signal produced by your fat cells, okay, received by your brain, that tells you that you're full. Okay, so the job is very simple. The more energy you have, the more leptin signal there should be, and it should tell your brain like, okay, we're all set. We got lots of energy. We don't need to eat anymore. Now, the trouble with this is that the more fat you have, the more leptin you produce. And the signal of like, we've got plenty of energy, stop eating. When you have obesity and you have all of this leptin signaling happening all the time, you develop leptin resistance, and your brain stops hearing the signal. It's kind of like the same thing happens with insulin and diabetes. It's like when you're just like loaded with carbs and sugar all the time and you make all this insulin, your body just becomes less and less effective at using it, and it needs more and more to get the same job done until you get this, you know, insulin resistance, and then eventually full blown diabetes. This is the same concept that you end up with something called leptin resistance, and your brain stops listening to the signal. So what happens is you continue to feel hungry, even though your body has like zillions of calories of stored energy. It's paradoxical. So this is why you can be totally ravenous and you know not necessarily have like willpower issues or you know problems with you know what I'm saying? So it's not like just a willpower thing. This is why like obesity is something that's much more complicated than, oh, that person is lazy. It's like, yeah, well, not only, do they probably have some lethargy and, energy balance issues, but they also have hormone signaling issues like leptin. So they feel freaking ravenous, even though they might be full and, clearly have, tons and tons of calories to burn as stored tissue. So here is the action point of leptin is one of the best ways to restore leptin sensitivity is to strength train. I have this conversation daily with patients. If you're not strength training, you're literally um, you are missing out on a vital nutrient that you have no choice. This is something you have to do if you want to maintain function, health, longevity. It's not just about looking good naked. It's about you need to have optimal muscle mass in order for you not to like start to get overweight and fat and then inflamed, and then you end up with all kinds of internal issues, organ system issues. Right? Because what happens is when you eat a lot of processed foods specifically, that starts to trigger this snowball effect of, you end up putting on more fat, more leptin signaling, become leptin resistant, and then you continue to eat the same way, and then your body doesn't really know what to do with that, energy other than just stored into fat tissue. So the answer is obviously strength train and eat whole foods. This will, improve your leptin signaling, and you won't end up in trouble. Okay, let's talk about the other side of the equation when it comes to your hunger. Okay, the hunger hormone ghrelin. So ghrelin comes from the stomach. So leptin comes from fat cells. Ghrelin comes from the stomach. So it's a hormone that spikes before meals that tells your brain, "Hey, feed me." Okay. So when you, for example, if you're dieting hard or you're in a caloric deficit, your ghrelin levels are always going to be raging. They're going to be really high, and that's what like chronic calorie restriction just feels horrible because you're just always starving. You got leptin and ghrelin signaling all over the place, and your biology literally starts to scream at you, just fricking eat, right? So the interesting part about ghrelin is also tied to sleep. Sleep deprived people have higher ghrelin levels as well and lower leptin levels. So this is a perfect recipe if you think about it for overeating, right? If you ever pulled an all-nighter or had a child before, sleep deprivation is real. You start to crave all kinds of crazy shit, especially like hyper calorie rich foods. So this is where the sleep conversation comes into play and how important sleep is. Prioritizing natural deep sleep. Try to get as many hours before midnight as you can, because this is a very important piece when it comes to optimizing your body composition, building muscle, burning fat, staying healthy, staying around the planet for a long time. trying to stay chronic disease free. So your rested body has lower ghrelin levels and better leptin sensitivity. Just remember that. Your body's going to receive the full signals better, and your hunger signals are going to be suppressed when you sleep properly. So you have way more control over hunger this way. So making sure you're eating protein-rich whole foods, strength training, and now you're going to hear the sleep thing again. It always comes back to these principles, you guys. Okay, but now you understand, like, oh man, this actually affects, hormones that actually tell my brain when I'm full or when I'm hungry, etc. So now let's touch on insulin. So insulin, when it comes to the calories in equation, this is the storage manager. Insulin's role is to move glucose, okay, which is sugar, from your bloodstream into your cells. Okay, it's literally the lock-in key that opens the cell for your body to be able to utilize these calories. So high insulin levels actually blunt fat burning. Okay, so it's an anabolic hormone. In other words, it's a storage hormone. That's why, like, constantly elevated insulin from too much processed food, from constant snacking, from eating a lot of different, like, processed carbohydrates specifically, and not moving your body makes fat loss really difficult. So insulin's not the enemy, though. Okay, you need insulin to live. Okay, this is why, back before we figured out what full-blown diabetes was, and we were able to give people exogenous insulin, people would actually die from type 1 diabetes. So insulin is critical to survival. It's anabolic, as I mentioned, so it's a storage hormone, but it helps you build muscle. So it helps shuttle nutrients into muscle after training, for example. But the goal is to balance this hormone. So insulin does rise when you eat, but it should return to a healthy baseline. If it stays elevated all day long and you go through these roller coasters, that's where the problem is. When you don't move your body needs to make more insulin. So there's a really cool thing that happens when you move your body, and strength train is like non-insulin dependent movement of calories into your cells. So the more muscle you have, the more active you are, the less insulin you need, the more insulin sensitive you are. Okay. The more fitness you have, the more insulin sensitive you are. In other words, you need less of the hormone to get the same job done. Also, when you move your body, it helps control insulin levels. When you balance your nutrition and eat protein-rich, fiber-rich foods, and also healthy fats, that helps normalize not just hunger, but also your blood sugar levels. So this is really, really critical. Now, so let's hit on the next hormone when it comes to the calories in equation. And this one is called cortisol. Now, cortisol can actually be in both sides of the equation, the calories in and the calories outside, but we'll talk about it in context of the calories in. So cortisol it's a survival hormone. This is also necessary for survival. You need cortisol in order to help your body release energy. It's a hormone that helps wake you up in the morning, mobilizes that energy during your workouts. But the thing is, it's a stress hormone. In other words, if you are chronically stressed, if you have chronic elevations of cortisol, from poor sleep, from chronic stress, from overtraining, it does drive cravings. So it does influence the calories inside. So you'll want, especially calorie-rich foods like sugar, sugar, salt, sweet, crunchy, quick calorie type of stuff. So you're actually going to feel hungrier than you truly are. Cortisol raises blood sugar, and then you go through a crash, because insulin will lower it, and then you'll crave more food, and you end up in this roller coaster. So chronic stress does contribute to that roller coaster equation just as much as eating bad foods does. So estrogen and progesterone, as it pertains to the calories in equation. So this is like a balanced duo. Estrogen helps regulate your appetite as well as body composition for both men and women, but especially for women. It keeps fat more stored in your hips and thighs during childbearing years. which is healthier than, say, for example, visceral fat. So when estrogen drops, say during perimenopause and menopause, fat storage will shift more to the belly region. Progesterone balances estrogen and helps regulate your mood as well as your cravings. So if you have low progesterone, this often equals like higher emotional eating. Also, low progesterone can, cause feelings of more anxiety, which can also drive stress, especially the sympathetic side of your nervous system, which drives cortisol, etc. So this is where balancing hormones like estrogen and progesterone come into that calories in equation. If you ever felt your appetite spike or your cravings changed at certain times of the month for you women, that's not all in your head. Don't let people make you think that's something in your head, because it's your hormonal rhythm that actually affects that. So if you want your metabolism to, like, make sure that it stays healthy when it comes to the calories in equation, making sure that that progesterone and the estrogen stay balanced as well. Let's see. So those are the main players on the calories inside. They dictate hunger, fullness, cravings. But let's talk about the other side of the equation. So how much do you actually burn? So let's first talk about thyroid hormone. So thyroid hormones T3 and T4. The analogy that's given with the thyroid often is that it's your thermostat. So it's like your metabolic thermostat. T3 is the active form of thyroid hormone. So some of that is created by the thyroid, and some of that is converted in the liver. And it sets the pace for how many calories you burn at rest. If T3 is low, so your resting metabolic rate will actually drop. You could be eating less and less and still not losing weight. You've probably heard of this happening before. That's why people with hypothyroidism, they feel like their metabolism is completely trashed and broken, and that they simply cannot lose weight no matter how low their calorie content goes. And on the flip side, overactive thyroid, for example, it makes it almost impossible to gain weight. That's why thyroid disorders have such a dramatic impact on weight. So that's a critical hormone to make sure you're testing not just the thyroid stimulating hormone, but also the T3 and T4 levels in the body. Testosterone, very important muscle driver in the body. So it's an anabolic hormone. In other words, just like insulin, it drives muscle building and storage. So it builds and preserves muscle mass. And here's the key: muscle is metabolically expensive. So it's like premium fuel. So every pound of muscle that you have increases how many calories you burn at rest. So another reason that part of the weight loss equation for everybody is that weight training must be part of this equation. You can't just cardio and calorie deprive yourself to weight loss and pretend that that's going to last forever, because that's why most diet plans fail. Is most people rebound. 95% of people that lose weight, they gain it all back, and some in a lot of cases, because a lot of times we're just doing the deprivation types of lifestyle stuff. If you build muscle at the same time that you lose fat in a caloric deficit, you make this a more sustainable equation over time. And the older I get, the more and more I think about, like, why would I do anything if I don't see myself doing it for a long time, if not forever? Short-term solutions definitely, they have their place on occasion, but in most cases, when it comes to especially your health, you want to make sure that you're practicing things that you can do forever. I'm not a big fan of diets that are temporary. I'm not a big fan of doing things temporarily when it comes to an outcome you want to see last forever, because if you don't see yourself practicing, that type of, say, diet style or that type of workout, like, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Okay, you're not going to maintain the benefit, and it's not going to last. So it's why one of the biggest goals in weight management should be building lean tissue always. The more muscle doesn't just look good, it allows you to eat more food without gaining fat, and it raises your metabolic floor. That's why the more muscle you put on your body, the more metabolically expensive it is, the more calories you need. And it's way more fun. You can eat normal amounts of food, even more food than you ever imagined, and you just continue to look great. Okay, so let's talk about growth hormone. Growth hormone is also an anabolic hormone, so affecting the calories out equation. It is like the repair hormone, I like to call it. It's released mostly during deep sleep and in times of like intense training and also fasting. So it actually growth hormone will mobilize fat. It spares muscle and supports tissue repair. It's really magical stuff. Without growth hormone, you do struggle to recover. You hold on to fat and you actually feel more run down. So chronic sleep deprivation we talk about this again. If you haven't figured it out by now, sleep is like the most magical, if you want to call it biohack there is. It's one of those things you absolutely have to prioritize. And that's why I tell people, like, don't complain about the results you don't have from the work you didn't do. Like, if you're not working on improving and optimizing your sleep, you're just wasting your time and money. Chronic sleep deprivation cuts growth hormone drastically. And I can attest to this. I do blood work on people every week. People that have worse sleep have worse growth hormone and IGF-1 levels. It's one reason people don't sleep enough. One reason people who don't sleep enough gain fat despite eating more calories, right? They don't sleep enough and they gain fat despite not eating more calories. Sorry. So you can actually, see your results become more and more sabotage when you don't sleep well. I mentioned IGF-1. Insulin like growth factor is very important. This is like the anabolic signal from growth hormone. So growth hormone will signal the liver to produce IGF-1. And this is triggered by growth hormone as well as nutrition. And it's one of the strongest signals for muscle growth and tissue repair. High IGF-1 when it's balanced means you're in an anabolic state. Low IGF-1 means you're in a catabolic state. So breaking down tissue faster than you build it is not a desirable outcome. So if you want a metabolism that burns hot, you want growth hormone as well as IGF-1 optimized. And as I tell everybody, this starts with sleeping properly. Okay, it also requires you to eat a protein-rich diet, and you must be strength training. So when it comes to calories in and calories out, there's more at play than just the hormones I talked about, but those are the main players. Those are the ones you really want to know about. Those are the ones you want to measure. So when it comes to one of the biggest lies, that your metabolism falls off a cliff as you age, specifically when we talk about menopause. So I hear this a lot from women. The recent research actually shows that your basal metabolic rate, so your BMR, doesn't change at all, much at all, between the ages of 20 and 60, which is really fascinating, which means that it doesn't work the way we once thought. It doesn't tank the way we once thought, right? So, what actually happens when you gain weight with age? Number one is you actually lose muscle mass. So we forget that muscle, again, is expensive and very active metabolic tissue. So less lean tissue means fewer calories burned daily. And the calories that you burn daily aren't necessarily the basal metabolic rate. I think what people need to understand is your total daily energy expenditure. So it's abbreviated TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure. It consists of largely the basal metabolic rate. That's the most calories in that equation that you burn. It's literally the calories that are required for your body to stay alive, for your organs to function, your heart to beat. Okay, just things that keep you alive, your brain. Now, there are three other things that contribute to this total daily energy expenditure. One of them is your physical activity. This is the one that people try to like use as the control rod when they want to keep eating shitty and stay looking lean and fit. And it doesn't work because your basal metabolic rate is most of the calories you burn. Then it's your exercise. You actually don't really burn when it comes to a full day. it's not actually the majority of the calories you burn from exercise. It's a small sliver. Um, what actually makes a huge difference when it comes to that total calories you burn is the next one, which is the non-exercised movement. It's called NEAT, non-exercise activities. Uh, this is the stuff that you do just walking, fidgeting, typing, moving around, blinking. It's just the calories you burn, just sort of like bumping around being who you are during the day. And if you're somebody who is like very sedentary, your total daily energy expenditure is probably way less than somebody who is just actively moving their body. And then the last little sliver is the actual thermogenic effect of food. Uh, Go figure, the food that is the most expensive for you to process and absorb is protein. So you actually do burn more calories just from eating more protein. So basal metabolic rate, physical activity, non-exercise movement, and also the thermogenic effect from food. That's your total daily energy expenditure. It's not actually the BMR or the basal metabolic rate that falls off a cliff as you age. It's actually you. It's you losing muscle from not working out, not lifting weights, you moving your body less, okay, just from not doing anything like you used to, from not doing things like you used to. And, perhaps your diet has changed. You're not eating as much. You're not eating as much protein. You just move less and your TDEE drops. Okay. Your metabolism isn't actually broken. It's just that your lifestyle slows down. Now, these hormonal shifts change appetite. That so when you get into menopause, for example, in men as they age, testosterone drops. You do go through some hormonal changes. Your appetite and fat storage patterns change also, not the resting burn rate. So the metabolism doesn't break at like 40 years old. What happens is muscle loss, less activity, changes in hormonal balance, etc. So what's the fix? You notice some people are able to just age gracefully. There's a lot of people out there that are in their 50s and 60s, like fucking, they look great. What is wrong with me? Okay, genetics do play a small factor in that, but over 90% of those results will be solely dependent on strength training. Okay, lift weights, stay active, just move your body a ton, walk every day, take the stairs, do have hobbies that are physically active, and prioritize sleep and recovery and a protein-based diet. Don't forget about managing stress as well. That'll, keep muscle on your body. It'll keep your metabolism raging. So, as far as actionable takeaways from this podcast, I just want to make it very clear. Number one is make sure that you're testing and not guessing. So, get your labs done. Get your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone, your thyroid, your cortisol, your insulin, your growth hormone, your IGF-1, all tested. And if these aren't on your physical, it's not shocking to me to hear that, because there's just not a lot of help you're going to get from the typical allopathic model. Okay, you're going to need to go to a functional practitioner who is concerned about healthy aging, and not just like testing your cholesterol and giving you a statin med and saying you're all set. Okay, know your numbers. It gives you a roadmap for helping balance your hormones as you age. Number two is prioritize muscle. All right, strength training is a non-negotiable. It is a vital nutrient. It is something that you will not experience symptoms from not doing it until way later in life. So don't expect to like have the results after one workout. You got to practice this habit consistently. And just know this, the more lean tissue you have, the stronger your metabolism will rage. The better you'll look, the better you'll feel. There's endless benefits of having more muscle. It's your metabolic armor. It's the thing you're hearing this more and more from longevity practitioners. It's like VO2 max and muscle mass. Like those are the things, if you want to live forever and just be bulletproof, you got to have that. Deep sleep, 7 to 9 hours, making sure you're getting to bed as many of those hours before midnight. This is when growth hormone and IGF-1 will spike, and those are your anti-aging hormones, guys. So you mess up your sleep, you're going to screw up your ability to burn fat, build muscle, restore joint health. Okay, you've got to make sure this is a priority. And I'm not talking like only Monday through Friday. We're talking Saturday and Sunday as well. So managing stress, High cortisol, you can just see, like, if you've probably seen those reels on Instagram, or people that have put into chat GPT, they use those AI models, like, show me a 40-year-old who's been under chronic stress for 20 years versus a female who eats enough protein, strength trains, and sleeps 7 to 9 hours. And you're going to see visibly different looking people. Like, high stress and cortisol destroys your ability to recover, for your ability to uh, age gracefully. And it kills both sides of the equation, the calories in and the calories out. So cortisol actually affects the calorie out even more than the calorie in, because it is a catabolic hormone. It does break down tissue for energy, including muscle tissue, if you're chronically stressed. So not only will you burn muscle, store body fat, have cravings that are out of control, it also ages you faster. So making sure that you're really working on things that help you manage stress, whatever that is for you, whether it's breath work or prayer or meditation or walking, you have to take stress seriously. You can't wait for a crisis, from decades of stress to take its toll. Managing stress is real. Number 5 is fuel intelligently. Protein first. That will never change. As far as my message, making sure you're prioritizing protein first. I like to cycle carbs around workouts. So you're eating, more of your carbohydrate rich foods, your starches and fruits and whatnot, like before and after workouts. Healthy fats in your diet to help you stabilize your hormones. So none of my recommendations ever tell you to starve yourself. It's more about, like, fueling intelligently. Super important. And, making sure you're cycling your calories. So number 6 is occasional refeeds restore your hunger hormones like leptin, and your thyroid output. I've seen people that have they've suppressed their thyroid from doing keto for too long, doing calorie deficit diets for too long. So being in a deficit for too long, it's not good. Your body always strives to homeostatic norms. So it always strives to go back to balance. That's why it's important to make sure that the way you're looking at whether it's a body composition goal, let's say you've gained 50 pounds and you want to lose 50 pounds, make sure you're in that mindset that you're going to lose this 50 pounds over time, however long it takes. It could take 2 years. Okay. Could take longer. It didn't take you 6 months to put on 50 pounds. I'm going to tell you that. Okay. So it's going to take longer than 6 months to pull it off. So during that time, there's going to be, trends, but also up and downs during those times. It's like the stock market. It's like anything else that you got to buy in for the long haul. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to try to force the body into doing something that is not sustainable. That's when you start to fuck up your hormones, like your thyroid hormones, your hunger hormones, your testosterone, etc. So make sure you're employing a smart strategy. If you need help, hire a coach. Test your hormones. Look what's going on under the hood first, and just make sure that you're dieting intelligently. Number 7 is don't blame your age. Put a new frame on your health. It is not your genes. It's not your age. It's more likely from the work you're not doing. If there's anything in here that you're not checking the box, like, yeah, I have fully focused and optimized my sleep. I have fully focused and optimized my diet practices. I have fully focused and optimized my strength training and, you know, cardiovascular routines. I have fully optimized my daily focus on moving my body. I have fully optimized my focus on making sure that I mitigate and manage stress and drink enough water. If you haven't done the work, then don't complain about the results you don't have, and don't reach for the quick fixes. Okay. Peptides don't work for sick, inflamed people. Balancing your hormones is important, but you have to make sure you're not just popping pills hoping your hormones will improve. All the meanwhile, your life is burning down in the background. That doesn't work. Okay. You cannot put band-aids on things that are way larger fixes. So don't blame your age on bad habits. Don't blame your genes on bad habits. Don't blame bad luck, okay, on your bad habits. Do the work. Okay? You cannot put a Band-Aid on your inability to commit to doing the work. So, closing this out. The takeaways in this calories in, calories out model is that hormones are one of the master regulators of how those results are going to be driven. So leptin, ghrelin, insulin, cortisol, estrogen, progesterone. So they push calories in, and thyroid, testosterone, growth hormone, IGF-1, and cortisol, right? They control calories out. And your ability to optimize those hormones, first of all, must be driven by optimizing your lifestyle. And the myth that your metabolism falls off a cliff once you hit the age 40 is total bullshit. What happens is you lose muscle from not training and eating protein. You move your body less because you're no longer as active as you used to be. Your hormones change, and they're changing fast and furious because your lifestyle has changed. So build muscle, move your body, sleep well, manage stress. Your metabolism is going to stay stronger for way longer. The ultimate goal isn't just to lose fat. It's to build as much lean tissue and maintain that lean tissue as long as you can, because that is truly the engine that revs your metabolism 24/7, right? While you sleep, while you're at rest. So weaponize your body, weaponize your mind. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, like, share, and, find someone that needs to hear this message. Share up the podcast. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys next week.